Napoleon Bonaparte. Undoubtedly one of the greatest military strategists of all time, this man conquered much of Europe before being exiled, only to return to France and start another war before permanently being exiled to a tiny island quite literally in the middle of nowhere, where he died. Most people don't know much about him except for the fact that he was short, which he wasn't. This video will go over Napoleon's entire life in about 6 minutes. Napoleon was born Napoleone de Bonaparte on August 15, 1769 in Corsica to Italian parents. His father, Carlo Bonaparte, was Corsica's representative to the French royal court from 1777 until he died in 1785. As a child, Napoleon spoke French with a Corsican accent, and as a result, other children would bully him. He turned to books and was, quote, distinguished for his application in mathematics. He was fairly well acquainted with history and geography. When Napoleon turned 9, he traveled to France to attend the military academy, and when he completed his studies there, he attended the École Militaire, training to become an artillery officer. Immediately after graduation, he was commissioned as a lieutenant in the 1st Artillery Regiment. During this time, and during the French Revolution, he became a supporter of Robespierre, who was famous for decapitating people, and Robespierre was eventually decapitated himself. Also during this time, he was quickly promoted, reaching the rank of Brigadier General in 1793 when he was just 24 years old. It was here that he embarked on his first ever military campaign. In 1796, he became the commander of the French army in Italy, winning a whole lot of battles and becoming a hero in France. Then, in 1798, Napoleon went to Egypt to try and protect French trading interests and to join up with the ruler of Mysore to try and kick the British out of India. This was during the War of the Second Coalition. There would be many more wars to come in the future. Napoleon's expedition failed, but in 1799, the French Revolution ended, and since Napoleon was a famous military leader and his brother was quite powerful, he became the new leader of France. He was called the First Consul. A year later, in 1800, Napoleon won his first significant victory as the head of his country. At the Battle of Marengo, his French forces fought and defeated Austrian forces, taking 8,000 men captive, while the Austrians only captured 900. This victory gave Napoleon further power in France. Up to this point, his campaign against the Austrians wasn't going so well, and this battle was kind of like the turning point. Napoleon turned this battle into a propaganda weapon. He named his horse Marengo, as well as several ships in the French Navy. His power escalated quickly. In 1804, he declared himself Emperor of France and basically became King of France. Europe was by then in war, multiple wars actually. One war was fought from 1803 to 1806, another one from 1806 to 1807, another one in 1809, yet another one from 1812 to 1814, and finally another one in 1815. These wars were what would be known as the Napoleonic Wars. The war that went from 1803 to 1806 was called the War of the Third Coalition. In this war, France, Spain, and a couple of other minor countries fought against the Holy Roman Empire, Britain, Russia, and a couple of other countries. It was during this war that the famous Battle of Austerlitz took place. Often heralded as Napoleon's greatest victory, his French Grande Armée won against Austrian and Russian forces that were 50% larger than his own. As a result of this war, Napoleon's new French Empire was recognized, France gained a whole lot of land, and the Holy Roman Empire, an empire that had lasted for almost 1,000 years, dissolved. The next war, fought between 1806 and 1807, was the War of the Fourth Coalition. During this war, Napoleon's French forces, along with his Spanish allies, fought against Prussia, a part of Germany basically, Russia, and Britain. Napoleon won again, and Prussia lost over half of its land. In 1808, Napoleon invaded Spain and made his brother King of Spain, in what would be known as the Peninsular War. The war after that was fought in 1809 and was known as the War of the Fifth Coalition. It was fought between France and Britain and a newly formed Austria. France won, it gained land, and so did a couple of its puppet states. As a result of all these wars, Napoleon controlled much of Europe. In 1812, however, Napoleon met his first major defeat. He invaded Russia, and he lost in much the same way that Hitler would over a century later. He lost due to the Russian winter. About 75% of Napoleon's army either perished or were injured in some way. Then, a year later, in 1813, another war broke out. This war was known as the War of the Sixth Coalition. France and its allies were attacked by Russia, Prussia, and the United Kingdom. It was during this war that the famous Battle of Leipzig was fought. This battle, also known as the Battle of Nations, was fought between France and between Russia, Prussia, and Austria. This battle was also the largest battle in Europe until World War I. Napoleon lost this battle, as well as the war, and was forced to abdicate and surrender. France lost a whole lot of land, and Louis XVIII became the King of France. Louis XVIII was the brother of Louis XVI, who was guillotined during the French Revolution. Napoleon was then exiled to Elba, an island in the Mediterranean Sea, but he couldn't stay still. In 1815, he snuck out of Elba, returned to France, and declared himself emperor again. Normally, this wouldn't be so easy. Someone shouldn't just be able to walk up and declare himself emperor. However, much of the French army were still loyal to Napoleon, giving him the legitimacy he needed. The other countries, namely Britain, Russia, and Germany, didn't like the fact that Napoleon returned. They declared that Napoleon was an outlaw and started another war to overthrow him. This war was known as the 100 Days' War, also the War of the Seventh Coalition. This was Napoleon's final war. He was finally defeated permanently at Waterloo and was exiled. This time, he was exiled somewhere far more remote, St. Helena, in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. He would die there 6 years later, in 1821, at the age of 51, due to what was probably stomach cancer. So that's Napoleon Bonaparte's life in about 6 minutes. If you liked the video, then be sure to subscribe and like. If you didn't like the video, then press the dislike button twice, and then, for good measure, press the like button. Thank you for watching Explained. New videos every other Friday.